The New York Mets, despite it not feeling like they did, swept the Los Angeles Angels in a 3-game set in Citi Field. Currently in the midst of a 4-game winning streak, now head out west to take on the San Francisco Giants and the San Diego Padres. Welcome back into another edition, episode number 72 of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie, back with you here once again. Jack, we are very quickly approaching the 1-year anniversary of you and I taking over this podcast and covering the Mets run all the way to the NLCS, covering the offseason of Juan Soto, and now getting through this season. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Chris. I didn't realize, but you're right. It is getting close to that time when things started to really click for the Mets and the season started to feel a little bit more magical. It's been a fun year, and after this most recent win, the Mets are back in first place over the Philadelphia Phillies, who lost their finale to the Boston Red Sox as the Mets continued or extended their win streak to 4 games.
Yeah, a weird series for the Mets, I think, is the best way to describe it, because while there was a lot of good, and we'll discuss Francisco Alvarez, we'll discuss the bullpen, I think, getting back to form, Francisco Lindor breaking out in the finale of this series, a lot of good for the Mets here in this series. It just feels weird with the deficits that they faced in the first 2 games, needing to come back, showing that scratch and claw, needing to get bailed out a little bit by the Angels defensively. It doesn't feel like they swept. It doesn't feel like they're in the middle of a 4-game winning streak, but that's exactly what they are doing right now. And listen, I'm not going to give it back. I'm not going to apologize for it. It's a good problem to have. You'd rather them win ugly than lose pretty. And that's what the Mets did here in this series. And I guess we should start with the opener here of this series, where the Mets, it felt like you were watching a similar script play out. Not getting length from your rotation, a bullpen that was overtaxed, an offense that couldn't hit outside of the 4 guys. The Mets facing a 4-0 deficit in this one. Brett Baty got things started with a 2-run home run, and then the Angels decided to be the Angels, boot the ball around a little bit, and the Mets were able to rally late in this one to steal the first game of this series by a final score of 7-5. Do we start with Juan Soto's big hit in the 7th? Do we want to talk about Kodai Senga? Where would you like to start with this one here, Jack?
We can start with Senga. I think because this was, I Bleav, his worst start this year, certainly, if not of his career. 4 earned runs in 3 innings, 3 walks. He did strike out 5, but it just didn't look pretty for Kodai Senga in this game. And I don't know if that's a reason for concern yet, because it's a sample size of 1. And coming out of the All-Star break, still kind of figuring things out post-injury as well. So just not exactly what we wanted to see from Senga in this first game.
Yeah, Kodai Senga coming into this start was on a 31 consecutive start streak of allowing 3 earned runs or fewer. He was chasing down a Jacob deGrom record, because if it's a Mets pitching record, it's probably held by either Jacob deGrom or Tom Seaver. Just pick one of those.
Doc.
Yeah, pick one of those 3 pitchers, and that's the person that probably holds that pitching record. And so that's why I'm willing to say this is not anywhere near a concern for me. A pitcher of Kodai Senga's caliber deserves a mulligan like this every once in a while. And the fact that it's been 31 straight starts since the last time we've seen a start like this from Kodai Senga, I mean, normally 31 starts carries you for a full season. So that's like saying for the entirety of this year, Kodai Senga hadn't had a start of 3 earned runs or more, right? More than 3 earned runs in a start. So I'm willing to give him the mulligan. The command wasn't there. The ghost fork was being left up in the zone a little bit. He was trying to throw it more for a strike, but was leaving it too much in the middle of the zone. That's how Hoppy got him. He was leaving stuff up to him. And yeah, it just wasn't a quality start from Kodai Senga in any capacity. The 4 hits, the 4 earned runs, the 3 walks, it was not great. Gave up a home run. But he'd be the first to tell you that. And because this is the first time this has happened in nearly a season's worth of starts, I'm willing to give him a pass, willing to give him a mulligan and file it away, keep an eye on it if it happens again. But knowing Kodai Senga, it's probably not going to happen again, because he has been great majority of the time that he's been out there for the New York Mets. A huge shout out to the bullpen, though, in this one, Jack.
Yes.
Because Kevin Herget, Chris Davinsky, Huascar Brazaban, Brooks Raley, those guys really did a solid job keeping this game close, keeping the door open for the Mets to be able to potentially make a comeback. And then once the door was kicked open, and then the Mets slammed it shut behind them. Brooks Raley and Edwin Diaz did their jobs in the 8th and 9th inning. So tip of the cap, the bullpen finally looking like the group that we had seen at the beginning of the season, keeping the Mets in it, being great, throwing up zeros, giving the Mets a chance. And that allowed this comeback to happen where the Mets were able to score 3 in the 7th and 2 in the 8th.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Chris Davinsky last time. It's kind of ironic. Who's a guy that had been looking like maybe not necessarily a high leverage guy, but definitely a bulk guy in the 6th, 7th inning that was doing pretty well for the Mets. And then after this game, his first earned run allowed since, I Bleav, April. And then the Mets DFA'd him. But he played a part in this game, gave up the 1 run, like I said. But to see Brosbon, to see Raley, to see Diaz with the 3 strikeouts in the 9th, like, it felt really nice to see that, and to have the offense pick up Kodai Senga as well, which I think also makes that pill a little bit easier to swallow, which again, Chris, like you said, feels more like the exception to the rule than a forthcoming trend with Senga. I think there's a really good chance that he bounces back in his next start.
I know Juan Soto had the big hit in the 7th that tied the game with the single after our catcher, Francisco Alvarez, with a big, huge double. I don't know when I want to have the Francisco Alvarez conversation. Maybe when we discuss his big home run in the 2nd game of this series, we can dive into his return to the Mets. I did chuckle at the fact that the Mets won this game, and in the 8th inning, they scored both of their runs on non-hits. A fielder's choice with an error scored the go-ahead run, and then the insurance run from Nimmo was on a sacrifice fly. So even when they're able to score runs to win a baseball game, still have those struggles to hit with runners in scoring position. Just a nice reminder of what this offense has been at times this season. I did chuckle at that. I know Soto had the big hit in the 7th, but in the 8th, they score both runs without getting a hit. And Lindor, who had to carry a 0 for 30 streak into Wednesday's game before he was able to snap that streak, he gets things started there in the 7th, but it was a fielder's choice that gets the Mets on the board there in the 7th. So just funny sometimes how this sport works.
Yeah. I mean, it was good knowing now with the benefit of hindsight that things started to improve with the runners in scoring position, but definitely amusing, especially given, like you said, Alvarez being a catalyst there with that double.
A second straight day in which the Mets dug themselves a bit of an early hole, because with Frankie Montas on the mound, the Mets were down 2-0 and had to battle back once again. And Frankie Montas delivered, I would say, the best start from a pitcher not named David Peterson in the last 30 plus or so. He tried to break the streak of David Peterson being the only Met to finish 6 innings. Listen, you want to knock that against him that he didn't finish 6. I thought a great start from Frankie, 5 2/3, the 2 walks. I think he battled. He filled up the strike zone, worked around some command issues at times, but through 91 pitches, which I think is great. Certainly feel like the next time out, there's really going to be no limitations on how deep into a game Frankie can go. If he's cruising, they'll push it to 100, 105, I think, no problem after a start like this. And so I know what the ERA says. I know the ERA says 4.62. I think Frankie's been everything that the Mets have expected him to be since coming back from the injury. And I don't think you can ask for any more than 5 2/3, 2 earned runs. Give the team a chance to win. Frankie Montas did it in this start.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was the Royal start was his last start before this one. That was also a really nice start. That was kind of a bounce back from, he had a couple of rough ones against the Pirates and the Yankees, which I think are the things that blew up that ERA a little bit and make it look a bit unsightly. But through, I guess, only 5 or 6 starts now for Montas, I'm starting to like what I'm seeing, and I'm starting to have a lot more confidence in kind of the back end of the rotation now, because obviously have a lot of faith in Kodai Senga, a lot of faith in David Peterson. But to see guys like Frankie Montas step up, have a start like this, 5 2/3, only allowed 2 runs, 6 strikeouts as well, which I think is a season high for him. But it's just been another nice thing, another thing that seems to be coming together a little bit for the Mets, especially given all the other injuries and stuff that's been going on.
I have the stats in front of me, and I can confirm both things that you said. He had the 2 bad starts against the Yankees and the Pirates that inflated his ERA. He's allowed 13 earned runs this season in the 25 1/3 innings that he's pitched. 10 of them came in 2 starts.
Yep. Yeah.
Against the Pirates and the Yankees. And yes, the 6 strikeouts were a season high for him. He had 3 starts of 5 strikeouts. He's coming off of a start before the Angel start where he allowed 1 earned run over 5 innings against Kansas City. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what you're looking for. Got to give you 5 or 6 innings, 3 runs, 2 runs, just give you a chance. And
it almost feels like he's like at the end of his late pseudo spring training. Like
Yeah.
the Pirates and Yankee starts were kind of him still figuring things out, coming back from the injury. Obviously, he had the really good first start. I'm blanking on who that was against.
Atlanta.
Atlanta, the 5 scoreless innings, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to have him now kind of in this ramped up mode, it seems like, where he's starting to get things clicking and maybe giving the Mets more depth, that will be huge if he's able to keep doing that in the future with some bigger series coming up in August, September, etc.
Let's have the Francisco Alvarez conversation. Returning to the lineup for this team, had the double in game 1 of this series, had a couple of really nice at-bats, and then in game 2 of the series, he reminded everybody why he was a former top prospect for the New York Mets, why I Bleav at one point was the top prospect in all of baseball, Francisco Alvarez.
At least 2. He was up there.
The power, the pull power, an absolute moonshot, crushed the ball to tie things at 2. And shout out to all the Mets fans who were in attendance for his first start in the first game of this series, especially in the second game of the series. The ovation, the support that they gave to Francisco Alvarez, I think that meant the world to him. It was great to see him get off to a good start, and it just seems like it is a more confident Francisco Alvarez. It also seems like it's a more patient Francisco Alvarez, and I'm afraid to do this. Because I don't like being this guy, because it's not, we don't know for sure. But boy, if this is the version of Francisco Alvarez that we're going to get the rest of the season, the Mets may have solved a little bit of their offensive problems.
Chris, I said it last episode. If we were talking about Alvarez coming back, how this was going to be his big series comeback, and I said this lineup is starting to look a little bit more deep with guys like Beatty performing, with guys like Vientos finally starting to turn a corner. It seems like getting the power back. And then I said, if Francisco Alvarez can do that same thing and look like he has looked in AAA with this, figure things out session that he's had since he got optioned, that will make the Mets lineup look so much more dangerous and deep. I said it to you at the game that we were at on Saturday. Even with just Vientos turning things around, it starts to look better. And then you mentioned him being more patient. That is a thing that I also wanted to bring up, given his 2 walks in the first game of the series, then the double, the homer in this game. Like, things seem to be clicking again for Francisco Alvarez in a way that they really haven't since his 20 home run rookie season.
Yeah, and it was really great to see the bottom part of the order do the damage in the second game of this series, because if I would have told you before the game, hey, the Fab Four are going to get 1 hit, you would just turn around and leave. You're like, I'm not watching this. I'm not going to the ballpark. It's not happening. I'll go get a nice meal with my family. I'll just enjoy my evening. I'm not going to go through that stress. And the reason why they were able to win this game is production from the bottom part of the lineup. Brett Beatty needs to figure out how to hit like every building is Citi Field, because he just crushes the ball when he's at home. Yep. Francisco Alvarez had the big home run. Ronnie Mauricio had the hit right after Alvarez that set up the Nimmo RBI to give the Mets the lead. And then credit where credit is due, because the Mets had to do a real delicate dance here in the second game of this series. They did not have Edwin Diaz available. He'd worked 2 days in a row. They did not have Huascar Brazoban available. He worked 2 days in a row. And so the path was Rico Garcia, our old friend who's back, Reed Garrett for 4 outs. I was stunned in the moment that Reed Garrett was called in after Rico Garcia, but it made sense because I think Garrett is the most trusted reliever that Mendy had. And so he treated it a little bit like a playoff game. Like, this is the tough spot in this game. I need to use Reed here to try to get me to the 9th inning. And then it was Ryan Stanek, who is back, ?
I'd like him to stop allowing anyone on base, let alone in scoring position.
He did allow 2 hits in this outing. Yes.
Right. I would like him to just shut down guys like Edwin Diaz striking out the side in the first game of the series, but
not in the third game of the series. Edwin Diaz not striking out the side. We'll get to that though.
No. But yeah, I mean, you said like the bullpen's looking a little bit better, and I think, fingers crossed, down the stretch, if we get guys like Sean Manaea pitching deeper into games, Frankie Montas, who we said, Peterson's been consistent about that, and then obviously Senga, we hope, will turn a corner as well. I really think that will make the bullpen and the strengths that the Mets have with the relievers they have shine a lot more when they're not being taxed and being used constantly. Like, I think Reed Garrett having a couple days off and coming out with this 4-out outing was a good display of kind of what he is able to do when he's on. And to have him come through with the Mets having taken the lead and hold it is a really nice sign for him going forward.
It was nice to see in the third game of this series, the Mets just jump out to an early lead thanks to Brendan Nimmo's leadoff home run. They did give it back up with Trout hitting a home run, but then very quickly had a big inning. Big inning, Lindor, Alonso in the third, Lindor in the fourth. They pulled a 6-1 lead. It got a little hairy there late. But the story in this one, Sean and I gives you 5 innings, allows the 1 earned run. I don't think he was super sharp. Felt like he didn't trust the sweeper very early on. Really is a 2-pitch pitcher right now. The broadcast was really talking heavily about that. But anytime that your ace, hashtag our ace, can go out there and give you 5 innings and only allow 1 earned run, and that is a sloppy start or not a sharp start, that's a good thing. And so Sean and I are battling. And again, he's still coming back from a major injury, did not have a spring training, had a couple of rehab starts on the way up. And so he's still trying to find it a little bit. Lower arm angle this year, down from the arm angle that he found last year. I think he's going to continue to refine his craft, and before we know it, we're going to start seeing the dominant Sean Manaea. And again, working in and out of jams is kind of what the calling card was for Sean Manaea last year. And he gives you those brief moments. Right, he starts out the game, strikes out the side. You're like, yes, this is it. Dominant Sean Manaea, no hitter alert. Just start telling everybody now. And he just runs into a little bit of trouble. So I think he's going to clean that stuff up. And very quickly, we're going to see that elite Sean Manaea here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier with Frankie Montas. It felt like his first few starts were kind of a late pseudo spring training ramp up. I think that's the same thing with Manaea here. It felt like he just kept missing outside, kind of his arm side, trying to stick in outside fastballs, get some backdoor sweepers in, and they weren't quite breaking as much as he wanted to get over the plate to get those called strikes. But I think you said the right word. He battled. It felt like a lot of the counts he got into were deep. A lot of full counts kind of raised his pitch count early, but then the ability to come back and not necessarily strike everyone out, but get soft contact and get out of some jams that made me feel like the process is, or the execution is not quite there yet, but the process is still working.
Francisco Lindor finally gets off the schneid, 2 hits, 2 RBI hits, and we'll take them. I'll take singles any way I can get them at this point for Francisco, and hopefully the ball can start rolling for him and he can get hot here. Pete Alonso with an absolute tank moonshot that he absolutely was a no-doubter, knew at the moment he hit it. That was great to see. Starlin Marte back in the lineup with 2 hits. I know I have been very critical of Starlin Marte playing regularly, especially his place in the lineup. But I don't mind where they're putting Marte in the lineup if he's going to produce the way that he's producing and just being a hits machine. Just great to see. Also great to see the Mets they steal on everybody. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you know. It doesn't matter if you don't know. Like, what is it, 22, 23 in a row without being thrown out? Just it has become such a tool, such a weapon, such a benefit to this team that they have. And it's just something that they can go to where a single can very easily turn into a double. And now you have an opportunity to hit with runners in scoring position. And I know that they're struggling with it, but guess what? The way you get out of it is you have more opportunities, you have more chances. And the Mets are really good at creating those opportunities because they are using their base running as a weapon.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. I mean, Juan Soto's already at a career high in stolen bases, and it's still late July. Mauricio in the first game of the series getting that steal is kind of what set up Nimmo for that RBI opportunity that put them ahead. So or maybe that was the second game. Regardless, it's good to see that they're being able to do these things without necessarily all of their speedy guys. Like Juan Soto is not a speedster, but to have him in a position to do stuff like that. We've seen Pete Alonso a few times this year steal bases because he knows his opportunities and when to take them. And that is a huge key that I felt like we had talked about coming into this season, but more in the context with guys like Jose Siri, maybe Tyrone Taylor. But even with Siri out, with Tyrone Taylor not playing every day, the Mets are still finding ways to get those extra little bits of advantage on the base paths. And then, like you said, Lindor coming through a couple times with runners in scoring position makes me feel even better about those situations as well.
Yeah, they're creating your own luck, right? And the Mets are kind of trying to do that with their base running, and it's become such a tool, such a weapon for them. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, because this was not the most ideal outing from Edwin Diaz. Got some generous strike calls from the umpire.
I can't blame anyone on that Angels coaching staff for getting ejected. The two guys that did get ejected.
Did you happen to hear? I saw this yesterday. Did you happen to see late in the day yesterday? I saw it. Wayne Randazzo, our old friend, our old pal, who used to call the games on radio for the Mets, his television call of those strikes.
I did see it. He was incredulous.
As he should be. Those were ridiculous strike calls.
They were horrible. And again, I cannot blame anyone for getting ejected for those calls.
But we'll take them. I'll take them.
100% of the time.
Hey, need that ABS system. Don't have it. Sorry. Can't do
Yeah.
anything about it. But no,
Yeah.
what a joke that is that those pitches are called strikes. I mean, those aren't even close. Not even
No.
borderline. Like I get frustrated when borderline stuff goes against the Mets or borderline stuff gets called strikes that shouldn't be. These weren't even borderline. I mean, these are egregious. I should do this. I should go find the scorecard from this game. I didn't. That's a poor podcasting job by me, because I'm sure it's not good. I'm sure it's not
Yeah.
great.
Especially in the ninth inning in a game that's getting tight late, like it's just really bad. I had seen also earlier in the game, I believe it was Brosbon pitching. There were a couple of strike calls that were called balls that were also unfortunate. I think it led to Brosbon's only walk in this game, but a tough day behind home plate for Eric Bacchus.
I'm trying to find Eric Bacchus's scorecard from yesterday. Yeah, not great. Overall accuracy, 90%. It's not great. Called 137 of 152 taken pitches correctly, minus 2.8% below expected. This is going to surprise everybody. The overall factor plus 0.84 runs for the Mets in how they worked. And the two pitches that Diaz threw in the eighth inning that were called strikes in that at bat. Yeah, 91% overall consistency there in that grade. Called strike accuracy, 80%. The average among umpires is 88%. Called ball accuracy, 95%. The average is 97%. So a below average performance from Eric Bacchus. Edwin Diaz also hit two guys, hit Chris Taylor in the head.
Yeah, that was scary.
After in his first appearance in this series, he froze Taylor Ward because on the previous pitch, he threw behind his ear accidentally.
Yeah.
So command a little bit shaky right now for Edwin. But as we mention on this show all the time, this is kind of part of the deal here. This is part of the process.
It's especially as his velocity is starting to tick back up a little bit. It's almost like he's maybe overthrowing some of these pitches and not quite putting them where he wants to. But hey, I mean, he got the end result in this game.
2 saves, right? He's got 21 for the season, so he didn't blow either of them. But yeah, obviously something to just keep an eye on is his command is all over the place. And I am fascinated by this idea that he throws 97, 98 behind a guy, Taylor Ward, and then the next pitch can break off the absolute perfect slider to freeze him. Like, how does that? How do you relock in like that and focus and throw that pitch? It's beyond me. Next,
even after he hit Chris Taylor, he locked back in. Like I would have been very rattled if I hit a guy in the head and he was able to just pump in strikes.
Yeah, just absolutely insane. Next series up for the Mets, they're going to take on the San Francisco Giants starting tomorrow. 3-game set in San Francisco. A lot of San Francisco here over the next 9 games, 3 in San Francisco. And then next weekend, they're home against the Giants. It'll be Clay Holmes going against Logan Webb on Friday, David Peterson going against Robbie Ray on Saturday, and Kodai Senga against Carson Seymour, the projected starters according to Fangraphs for this series over the weekend. An updated story in The Athletic this week, or I think it was yesterday, from Tim Britton and Will Salmon. So I tried to make Will Salmon's story a Tim Britton story. Now they work together on a story, so I can give credit to both of them. Looks like right now the plan is for multiple reinforcements for the bullpen. A quantity over quality approach is the way it was being described. The Mets are keeping tabs on the center field market. Shout out Luis Robert, potentially there as a player to keep an eye on. And AJ Ewing is apparently a prospect that some other teams are keeping tabs on ahead of this trade deadline. So I'll let you take any of those in whatever direction you want to take them. But that's kind of the latest here as we are a week away from the deadline. The deadline is a week from today.
I don't really have much to add to that, Chris. I just feel like the bullpen additions are not a surprise to me. I think that's very clearly a spot that the Mets would like to improve, especially if it means getting some fresher arms in. I know it's the midway point of the season, and that's kind of a oxymoronic thing to say, fresh arms halfway through the season, but different looks, different guys whose stuff they like, maybe, like you said, quantity over quality. Maybe that just means the ERA isn't necessarily what we want it to look like, but maybe some of the under the hood stuff looks really good, like our guy Ferguson.
I was just going to say, that is music to your ears. Music to your ears.
So it's. I think that's not a surprise. I do wonder how much this center fielder buzz is real. I think acquiring position players is going to ultimately end up always costing a little bit more than maybe a non-controllable reliever. So we'll see on guys like Robert, or I know we were talking about some fans really want to get in on Eugenio Suarez, which I don't think is going to happen, but we'll see. I mean, it's a week away and we haven't really heard too much like deals matriculating or solidifying it in the last couple days.
Yeah, you're kind of just waiting for the dam to break in some regards, right? Like nobody has gone through the wall first and set the market at a certain position, right?
Right.
And I think everybody's kind of waiting for that. But just to remind everybody, a team that went to the NLCS last year added Phil Maton, Ryan Stanek, Huascar Brazaban, and Tyler Zuber, and nobody was getting all hot and bothered about those guys. They weren't getting excited about those guys. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just the way David Stearns kind of chooses to operate. Uh, I still think that's going to be where they make the biggest moves. I don't think they're going to make a move for a bat. Do I think they could use a bat? Yes. I think they could use somebody, especially if Jesse Winker is not going to be ready anytime soon.
Right. Right.
You know, you mentioned Eugenio Suarez and the Diamondbacks. Like Josh Naylor makes a ton of sense. A lefty bat that can be a DH, can spell Pete at first if you want to get Pete some days off and have him be the DH, which is power, right? It just would help a lot of things. But I just think the cost is going to be too high. And I don't think Stearns wants to tap into that prospect system just yet.
Yeah, I think the weird part about the expanded playoffs is that every team that's even like around 500 right now is kind of close enough to contend where they might think, hey, I don't know if I necessarily want to trade this guy that might be able to help me win enough games this year and at least make a push over the next couple of months. So the prices are always going to be a little bit higher when the supply is a little bit lower.
Yeah, I think it's so hard to do this, but I think anybody that sits right now below 500 is probably a seller. So in the National League, that's the Diamondbacks, Marlins, Braves, Pirates, Nationals, Rockies. I think the only team that's really on the border there is the Diamondbacks, but they're 5.5 games out. There's 4 teams in front of them. They're not playing well. I think they're out. And then in the American League, it's Kansas City, who's 3 games below 500, Minnesota, the Angels, the Orioles, the A's, the White Sox. But like the Royals are only 4.5 out of a spot. Now they've got 4 teams that they've got to pole vault themselves. So that's not easy either, but that's really the state of affairs right now. But if you're St. Louis, you're just 1 game above 500. What are you doing? If you're Cincinnati, I know they're 2.5 out, 3 games above 500. Are they going to be buyers? They've been linked to a reunion with the Eugenio Suarez. So it's really hard to determine and define the market, really, I think. I think that clears itself over the weekend. I think as Monday rolls around, I think teams like the Diamondbacks, teams like the Cardinals, teams like the Twins, the Royals are going to define who they are probably with just a couple of days. Because if you're going to be a seller or a buyer, whatever you're going to be, you don't want to leave that business until the absolute last second. You want to start doing that work ahead of time. So just something to keep an eye on is the market. I don't think has really materialized just yet because there are just a bunch of teams that are still trying to hold out hope to, I think, be in this mix in August and September. That's going to do it for us here on this edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. If you're new here, please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, share the show with a Mets fan friend. You can also watch the program over on our YouTube channel. Just search Jack McKessy, McKessy. You can catch the video version of the pod over there as well. We are back after this series concludes with the San Francisco Giants, and it'll be trade deadline week. So could there be a move made that sets the market? Could the Mets have been active by then? Whatever the case may be, we will be here to break it all down on the Bleav in Mets podcast. So enjoy the Giants series, everybody. We'll talk to you in the next one. As always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.